What is the perfect tight end candidate? We talked about this a little bit yesterday, Caleb, but quite frankly, we didn't have enough time to delve into it. So just paint the picture, if you're Josh Heupel, what this guy looks like. And I'll start. Uber recruiter, some tight end experience, and I would like a little special teams experience. How would you paint the perfect guy before we go through the list of possibilities?
Uber recruiter, some tight end experience, some special teams experience. That's what you said.
Yes.
I don't. I am Uber recruiter and versatile experience coaching offense, meaning you've coached a couple of different positions on offense. I'm not that specific to having to have coach tight ends. I think if you've coached wide receivers and running backs, you can coach tight ends. So I'm just mainly recruiter and a little bit of versatility, either versatility coaching offense or specific experience coaching tight ends. One of the two. And also a bonus familiarity with Josh Heupel's system.
Okay. Boy, that might be tough to find. He's pretty original, but I'll roll with you on that one. So here we go. Let's take a look. As far as the list that you had put together, I want you to pull that list up, and it's on offthehooksports.com. If for some reason you don't have time or you have to bolt away, that's okay. But pull that list up, and I'm going to give it a thumbs up, thumbs down. I would hire him. How about that? We'll do it
Fair
that way.
enough.
So
Want to go through it?
yeah, give me a little thumbnail on that. And I'll remind you that the official craft beer of Off the Hook Sports is Zool Beer, downtown great parking, xulbeer.com, Zool Beer Company, and they have worldwide award winning craft beer. So let's roll through these 10, Caleb, and tell me what you got. I'm going to give you a thumbs up, thumbs down, whether or not I would hire him.
Okay, first one, Seth Littrell. He just got fired from North Texas after 7 years as head coach there. He and Heupel never worked together, but they both coached tight ends under Mike Stoops at Arizona during separate stints. Littrell coached there in 2009, 2010, and 2011. He has offensive coordinator experience. Heupel, his first on-field coaching role was under Mike Stoops in 2005 before he went to Oklahoma to coach quarterbacks, and Heupel was also a tight ends coach. So where are you going with that?
I like his recruiting ties that I assume he would have in Texas. However, Texas athletes don't typically work out for Tennessee, so I'm going to give that a thumbs down.
Okay.
It'll get better. There's a lot on here I like. Don't get downtrodden. Come on, Caleb.
Okay, so now we go to Heupel's history of just promoting from within. So I'm going down a few offensive analysts. First one is Mitch Militello. He is an offensive analyst. He works a little more with the quarterbacks, but he's been in Heupel's system for a little while. So there's the possibility that he could transition over to being promoted and coaching tight ends.
I want a guy who is who brings some experience and has better recruiting ties than a hire from within with a young guy. So I'm going to give that a thumbs down. But I love the direction you're going because I think it's about to get really good.
All right, well, we got two more then that you're probably going to thumbs down because the next one is another offensive analyst, Alex Golesh. He's a former lineman, but I know in the past there are some offensive linemen who have been able to transition to working with tight ends. He played for Josh Heupel at Missouri, played offensive line when Heupel was offensive coordinator there. So he's another offensive analyst, but I'm guessing with his limited recruiting ties, you're going to say no.
I'm not crazy about that one, so I'm going to give that a thumbs down. But I love you like a brother, but I'm an only child, so I don't really know what it's like to have siblings. All right. Let's go to the next one.
Another offensive analyst. There's a reason I had these guys near the bottom of the list, to be fair.
Okay. So this is ascending. We're working our way up in the world.
Yes. So Cody Cook is the final one. His playing background, he played at Kansas State. He was a junior college walk-on. He was an all Big 12 all-purpose player. So he played a little quarterback, a little running back, and a little receiver. I feel like if you played all three and you have experience in Heupel's system, it shouldn't be that hard to transition to coaching tight ends.
I
But
think
I'm guessing you're thumbs downing that.
I think we can do better. I think you and I can do better as a name. So I'm going to give that a thumbs down. But I like where you're going.
All right, now next, number 6, Luke Wells. Luke Wells was co-offensive coordinator with Heupel at Utah State in 2015. He was the tight ends coach under Philip Montgomery at Tulsa this past year. I think that current standing is up in the air because Montgomery is gone. Kevin Wilson is taking over there. It's pretty obvious Wells will jump ship, but he has experience coaching tight ends. He's worked with Heupel before. He's got ties. He's got some experience. So where are you going with Luke Wells?
I'm going to give that a thumbs up. I would be good with that hire. So I like the fact that, co-offensive coordinator is a funny thing. A lot of times that's just a way to get the administration to give somebody a raise. But you're at least involved with game planning at the very least, even if it is just a title. So I will say I'm thumbs up. I'm good with Luke Wells. And then it gets interesting.
Yes, now it gets good. Former Tennessee running backs and receivers coach and current Duke assistant coach and running backs coach Trooper Taylor. Taylor's never coached tight ends, but he's coached receivers and running backs. He's coached in Louisiana, Alabama, North Carolina, Tennessee, Oklahoma, Arkansas. So tons of recruiting ties. And I think that it shouldn't be that hard of a transition for him to coach tight ends.
Yeah, and did a great job with Tennessee's receivers in 2004. I'm giving that a monster thumbs up. Just a monster thumbs up. I think that would be a fantastic hire. Somebody, when Trooper Taylor, the reason he was at Arkansas State, his wife was getting, I believe, her doctorate, and his son played there. So he was at Arkansas State for a long time, and everybody's wondering why. And some people wanted to say maybe he had recruiting baggage, that he was in trouble with the NCAA, and he was supposed to take like a Michael Jordan sabbatical, like Jordan did with baseball. I don't believe any of that. I think if you recruit well, people always say that you've done something awry. I think that Trooper Taylor is going to be a fantastic coach whenever he decides to kick his coaching back into high gear. Here's the other thing that's interesting about Trooper is I'm not sure off the top of my head how old he is, but he's a little bit older than me, and I'll be 49 in March. So I believe he's a little bit older than me. Here's the other thing about Trooper Taylor. The guy is like a health freak. So he, has never drank a drop of alcohol in his life. He was born in 1970, so he would be around 52 years old. So I mean, this is a guy that's going to just be able to keep churning and churning and churning. Great, great SEC experience. And he's a guy that can, he coached at Auburn, coached at Tennessee, of course. He can go into Miami and recruit with the best of them. That's a huge monster thumb up, and you're going to have to blow me away with some of the other ones because I think that's a really, really strong one. I don't know if Josh Heupel wants to make that call because it is kind of a hearken to the past thing. But yeah, I like that. I'm giving Trooper my thumbs up. Brought to you by Vassy Lawn and Garden. Man alive, it's worth the drive in Cleveland, Ohio. All right, so who we got next?
So next, by the way, before we even go, I just wanted to add a stat. Trooper coached running backs in 2004. Tennessee had 2 1,000-yard rushers for the only time in history. Then he moved to receivers in 2006, and Robert Meacham set the single-season receiving record, a record that still stands in Tennessee. So, yeah. All right, Daryl Wyatt. Wyatt is he's been a passing game coordinator, an offensive coordinator, and a receivers coach. He's currently Boston College's receivers coach. He was on Heupel's staff at UCF from 2018 to 2020 as a receivers coach. He's also been a recruiting coordinator and a co-recruiting coordinator at Houston and Texas. So he has experience recruiting. He has ties to Florida, Texas. I don't really think it matters to have ties to the Northeast. Northeastern high school football is horrible and irrelevant at this point. But I think outside of that, I think Daryl Wyatt could be, you want a recruiter? I mean, here's an experienced recruiter who has ties to some major recruiting states.
I'm 120% down with that. I think that's a huge monster thumbs up. I like that. I like that hire a lot, a lot. So Now we're getting into the good stuff, so you better hit that thumbs up button so we can bring more people in. And if you haven't subscribed yet, be sure and do that. So, by the way, already Travis is saying TT is the one. So there you go. All right, who's next?
All right, next we got John Cooper. John Cooper was a graduate assistant under Heupel.
Are we talking about sweater vest, John Cooper?
We are not talking about the former Ohio State coach.
Okay,
The one,
yes, sure.
Isn't Tressel the sweater vest one?
Oh yeah, Tressel's the sweater vest one. Sorry.
Yeah. Fulmer always had a nice sweater vest in November games, I remember. But yeah, okay, so John Cooper,
He also had the boob sweat in September. But anyway.
oh god, that 2003 Florida game. Oh, damn.
Yeah, I was a big guy back then. I can take those shots still, even though I've lost some lbs.
All right, so Cooper was a graduate assistant. Well, he played offensive line at Oklahoma when Heupel was coaching quarterbacks there. Then he was a graduate assistant under Heupel when Heupel was offensive coordinator there. Graduate assistant under Heupel at Utah State. Offensive analyst at Missouri when Heupel was offensive coordinator. But most importantly, he was the tight ends coach at UCF Heupel's first 2 years there. Then he went over to Arkansas to be a tight ends coach under Sam Pittman in 2020. Offensive line coach at Western Carolina in 2021. Making that lateral move is a red flag because Sam Pittman, it's not like he was fired after 2020. Came back to Oklahoma, made another lateral move, kind of, because he became an offensive analyst, and just recently became the offensive line coach at North Texas. Obviously, if Heupel comes calling, he's going to leave North Texas. But experience in Heupel's system, coach tight ends, has Florida ties, has Oklahoma ties, has Arkansas ties, and has Missouri ties. And
I don't know the background and what happened at Arkansas with Pittman, but that could be something like happened with Trooper Taylor. Trooper Taylor wasn't given the offensive coordinator position. He said, I'm out for Oklahoma State. So I'm going to give that a thumbs up based off a little bit of ignorance there, not knowing what happened at Arkansas. But I think that's a thumbs up. I think you've obviously stacked the best ones at the top of the list, and it's on offthehooksports.com right now.
Yes. And then the next one, the last of the realistic hires, put it that way. Joe John Finley. He coached under Heupel in 2012 and 2013. He's coached under, I believe it would have been Art Briles in 2015. I think Art Briles was still there in 2015. He was Heupel's tight ends coach in 2016 and 2017. Coached under Jimbo Fisher as tight ends coach at Texas A&M in 2019. Coached under Lane Kiffin and Jeff Levy in 2020 as the passing game coordinator and the tight ends coach. And the past 2 years under Lincoln Riley and then Brett Venables, he's been associate head coach for offense, tight ends, and H-backs coach. So he's coached under Heupel. He's coached tight ends. He's worked with Kiffin, Jeff Levy, Jimbo Fisher, has Texas, Mississippi, Oklahoma ties, and tons of familiarity with Heupel.
Love that one. Big monster thumbs up. And then you're going to go crazy here in a second.
Going to go crazy. The last one, and it's about recruiting. And you're right, he probably wouldn't take it. But if you can get Jason Witten, who's coaching high school football in Texas right now, why not? Played at Tennessee. The most versatile tight end, I think, in the history of the NFL, is the only tight end I know in NFL history that could line up at left tackle or wide out. So he understands the nuances of playing all parts of tight end. Played at Tennessee in 2001, 2002. A great leader. We know he's a great leader. And we don't know how good of a recruiter he is. This is also dependent on maybe whether or not he would want to be a recruiter, but he would have an advantage just by name alone by saying he's Jason Witten. So
Travis asked, why wouldn't Witten take it? Well, here's my answer. He's a multimillionaire. He's beloved in Texas more than he's actually beloved in Tennessee, believe it or not. He won the Bob Lilly Award, which goes to the best all-around player on and off the field, more than Bob Lilly won it. So he won it like 6 times, and Jason or Bob Lilly won it like 4. So it wasn't called the Bob Lilly Award when they gave it to him. It was like the humanitarian off-the-field award. I don't think Jason Witten, here's another reason. Travis, I don't think Jason Witten has the desire to recruit. I also think that he would have to totally learn another offense. So I love Jason Witten. Trust me, if there hadn't been a book written about him, I would like to be the one that wrote it, but there's already been one. I will say that Jason Witten, your number one guy, I'm going to have to give a thumbs down to. I love it in concept. I just don't know that he would want to take on that responsibility of learning a new offense, which I'm sure he's not running that in Texas. What school is he in Texas? Do you know, by the way? And
Uh,
the
it's
other thing is recruiting. Now, you could argue he would have great recruiting ties in Texas, and that would help him make the transition and have an impact on Josh Heupel's staff. But I'm going to say right now that I'm going to have to give Jason Witten a thumbs down.
It looks like he's at Liberty Christian School in Argyle, Texas. That I think that's in the Dallas Fort Worth area. It's a suburb of Fort Worth. So I like what Anthony Richards said. Dave, I don't know your thoughts on this. I think Jason Witten was the biggest indictment of Fulmer's coaching ever. That him falling to the third round in the draft had everything to do with Fulmer not using him enough, particularly that 2002 year when Clawson had no receivers because Kelly Washington went down. They should have been throwing it to Jason Witten every time.
Well, it had a lot more to do with Fulmer sandbagging him when he was asked about Witten by NFL scouts leading up to the draft. So it had a lot to do with that, out of resentment that he didn't come back for his senior year.
Oh, wow. Well, Fulmer was old school. I forgot about that. He actually said in like 2007 that Robert Meacham probably should have come back for a senior year. And I'm like, why would Robert Meacham come back for a senior year?
Well, and I will say this in all fairness, when Jason Witten made his announcement that he was going to the NFL, that guy was shaking like I've never seen anybody shake before. He was nervous. And I remember disgraced sports information director Bud Ford leaning over to me and saying, "This guy ain't ready for the NFL." And I was like, one press conference doesn't determine it, but that went through my mind as well. As he was very, very nervous at that press conference, Caleb, incredibly nervous, and it made me wonder how he would handle the NFL spotlight. Now, he handled it great, and man, the first time I interviewed him for one of those Bob Lilly Awards in the locker room after a game in which I believe they beat the Redskins, he seemed like he had matured. And I know it had been 6-8 years since I talked to him, but he seemed like he had matured from a wide-eyed guy when he left about what's this NFL all about to one of the true leaders of that team and maybe even the league in the way he played. And so I love Jason Witten to death. You have to remember too, he had a rough upbringing. His dad wasn't really around, and he was just basically adopted by his high school football coach. So I think he sees a lot of value in giving back at the high school level. So I don't even know that he would be approachable. That would answer the question of why wouldn't he take it that we had on the message board. Now, I will give Philip Fulmer some credit for this. They did line Jason Witten up wide. They had a lot of other guys to get the ball to. He broke a lot of tight end records. So I don't think if you graded it that it was a total F for Jason Witten and in the way they utilized him at Tennessee. It was probably a C. So I didn't think it was terrible, Caleb. I thought he could have been utilized more.
Yeah, I think more 2002 because we talked about defending Casey Clawson yesterday, and I think you and I both know that like after Dante Stallworth left and then Kelly Washington got hurt in the middle of 2002, Clawson never had a decent receiver to throw to after that. His last year and a half as Tennessee's quarterback. I mean, that was a hodgepodge that was a makeshift receiving unit core, particularly his senior year. So 2002. I think Jason Witten should have been used a lot more, mainly just because there were no other options. Wasn't like Montrell Jones and Leonard Scott the top two receivers
Yeah.
that year?
Leonard Scott would have been an incredible receiver if instead of a football, they used a javelin. Because it would have just stuck to him because he couldn't catch, but he was wide open all the time because he was so fast. If they just used a javelin, he would have been a world record receiver in terms of yardage gain. He was open all the time.